Giuliana Furci is the founder and CEO of the Fungi Foundation. She is also an associate at Harvard University, a National Geographic explorer, a Dame of the Order of the Star of Italy, the deputy chair of the IUCN Fungal Conservation Committee, and the author of several titles, including a series of field guides to Chilean fungi. She has co-authored titles such as The First State of the World's Fungi, published by Q in 2018, and the publication that delimits the term funga and the 3F proposal, fauna, flora, and funga, in that publication. And so, as you can tell, she has an incredible list of credentials to her name. And but I wanted to especially mention that she is the recipient of the Steward of Biodiversity Award from the McKenna Academy that we gave to her in 2022 at the ESPD 55 symposium. She traveled all the way from Chile to receive that award, and we were honored to be able to bestow it on her. So, as you'll find in this conversation, Giuliana is a very energetic person with lots of things going on, and we're eager to talk about this latest project that she is working on with some colleagues to create essentially an archive of Mazatecan literature. So it's my pleasure to welcome Giuliana to the Brain Forest Cafe.
Hello, Dennis. Thank you very much.
Hi, Giuliana. Did I leave anything important out?
Oh, I think that's good. That's
okay.
Good.
Well, it's a real pleasure to have you on the show, and we've been in several different places together, and I have nothing but great admiration for you, your energy, and you're the kind of people that gets attention and gets things done. And I think the last time I was visiting you up at Paul Stamets's place a couple of summers ago, you were here, or you were in BC rather, and you just got like 2 back-to-back articles in the New York Times, and not simply in the back-to-back, but upper on the front fold, on the front page. So you're an incredible, public relations wizard as far as I'm concerned. I wish we had that kind of clout, The New York Times has so far ignored the McKenna Academy, but maybe this will change things. So tell me a bit about this project you're working on with Vuelta Sur, which is a foundation, another foundation. The philanthropic arm of Vuelta Sur is to discover and support young artists with limited financial resources. The foundation supports initiatives that provide essential art training and transcend borders, emphasizing connections between Mexico's indigenous communities. The foundation is dedicated to preserving knowledge and wisdom of ancestors, ensuring that this heritage is cherished and passed down to future generations. And then in connection with this, you have this collaborative project that you're working on. The, my Spanish, I will probably butcher this, but the Historia Memorias Mazatecas archive will be one of the most comprehensive collections of Mazatec records, textiles, historical artifacts, and video and sound recordings. To protect this invaluable archive, the Fungi Foundation, Vuelta Sur, and Historias y Memorias Mazatecas are launching a fundraising campaign to establish the first museum in the region dedicated to Mazatec heritage, including, of course, Maria Sabina's legacy. I could share a picture of this event that you've got going.
Yeah.
And this will be in Vancouver. This is an in-person event on September the 1st. And unfortunately, I'm going to be out of town, but you'll have Paul Stamets and the Fungi Foundation, the Historia, Memorias, Mazateca, and Vuelta Sur will be holding this fundraiser in North Vancouver on September the 1st.
It's a glorious event that will also have a live performance by Tarun Nayar, or known as Modern Biology, who makes music with bioelectrical, acoustic sounds emitted by fungi and plants and others. So it promises a great event.
So here's information about the event: veltasur.com/pages/donations, and you can register for the event there or find out more about it from that. So with those bit of housekeeping matters, tell me what's exciting you besides this project, or tell me about this project. What was the origins of this project?
Dennis, this is one of those projects that I'd say one of the very few projects in my life that are as dear as can be to the heart. And the way this all started is quite magical. It was more than 10 years ago. I visited Huautla de Jimenez in Oaxaca in Mexico to as a pilgrimage to lay some flowers on Maria Sabina's tomb. And so I visited for less than a day. I arrived in Huautla, went to the cemetery. But before going to the cemetery, I decided to go and make an offering at Maria Sabina's house, her family home, and had a very special encounter where it was made clear to me that I was expected in Huautla, and that through ceremony there had been news of the arrival of somebody coming with some sort of purpose. And nothing was very clear at that moment of my visit in Huautla. And I went to the cemetery and I paid my respects and left Huautla. And then about 3 or 4 years ago, I got a message from Inti Garcia Flores, my brother Inti. And Inti writes to me and says that he's the son of an archivist who was the town's photographer and videographer, Don Renato Garcia Dorantes. And many people might, the surname Dorantes might ring a bell because it's an important surname in the history of how the West got to know of the use of psilocybe. And so Inti writes to me and says, I am the guardian of an archive that my father built with photography. There are photographs, videos, textiles, ceramics, documents, and the whole archive is falling to pieces. It's being consumed by mold, by moths, by termites that were eating the cellulose of the film. And this whole archive, historical archive, was in a room in a house that had, serious leakage problems, etc. So immediately I thought, something rang a bell about a purpose of why I'd been to Huautla. And he sort of mentioned that he'd known of my visit and of how expected I had been there. And he asked for my help. He said, could you help me try to save this archive? Of course, I immediately said yes and got part of the Fungi Foundation's team together. So the Fungi Foundation, which is this organization that I founded 12, 13 years ago in Chile, but that also works in the US and in other places around the world. And so I got a team together to start looking at a crowdfunding campaign. I met Inti and his family on Zoom, and we had a bit of a look at what was happening and realized that what we had to do is find the funding to paint and then move this archive before it was lost. At that point, we didn't really know all the details of things that were in the archive. We did know that there were a lot of never seen before photographs of not only Maria Sabina, but also other curanderos and curanderas that were working with La Pastora, with salvia, with morning glory, with cacao, with maize, with, of course, mushrooms. And so we got together this little campaign to start looking for the funding to move and clean the archive. And before doing that, before launching the campaign, one evening, the night before, I thought, I think I need to tell Paul Stamets about this. Paul Stamets is a board member of the Fungi Foundation, and he's a very dear friend of mine, 20 years, of yours more. So I called Pablo up, and I was like, Pablo, for those who don't know, we lovingly call Paul Pablo. It's very hard to call him Paul. So I called Pablo up, and I'm like, Pablo, there's this archive, and we're putting together this campaign, and we're going to save it. And he immediately asked me, he said, okay, sister, how much do you need to save this archive? And we'd calculated that we needed about $25,000 to do the whole job. And he said, you know what? I'm going to fund this, see what's there, save it, and then let's move forward. And so Paul was the first donor to support the saving of this archive. And when we got in there to see, I immediately with Inti started working to buy boxes to get things out, etc. We finally built a new storage facility, and Inti and his family cleaned all of the material that were there and moved them to the new storage facility. What was found that was in there was incredible. So, for example, there's footage, for example, of a day in the life of Doña Julieta, for example, one of the 13 grandmothers, no? There's footage of Maria Sabina's wedding, of Maria Sabina visiting her family at the cemetery, of Maria Sabina's...
that's incredible. Those are incredible things. Yeah.
Really, really incredible things. That's just the tip of the iceberg. And so Inti and his family invited me to collaborate with them and their forward in, now that we've more or less saved the material in the archive, to work to back it up, to restore it, but most importantly, to fulfill his father, Don Renato Garcia Dorantes, the archivist's wish, which was for all of that to be shown and to be at service of keeping Mazatec culture alive for the Mazatecs. So the idea was always for all the material there to be kept in the region, hopefully in Huautla, and for it to be shown and exhibited to teach younger generations about their culture and their traditions, and also to reintroduce some of the lost traditions and culture that the archive holds as teachings. For example, the loom, the Mazatec loom and weaving, or for example, the evolution of the clothing and the huipil, and there's a whole explanation, and there are pieces there to show that. So I accepted that invitation, and we've been working for many years now in backing up the archive, and we have finally rented a small place in Huautla to build the first edition of this museum. But the true dream, Dennis, is to build a museum, a permanent museum in Huautla that houses permanent exhibits, but also temporary exhibits that the archive holds, and for it to be able to receive donations from other places in that region of cultural and traditional objects and information of importance. In a nutshell.
Well, that is so important to preserve this traditional knowledge, because as somebody who's had a bit of my own challenging experiences trying to preserve libraries in rainforests, particularly with regard to my brother's library, which he had in his house in Hawaii, and I had to somehow, deal with it after he died, and there was no, books and rainforests and human environments don't get along so well, so it was rather a challenge. So I understand the challenges that you're facing with this. And
what did you do in the end? How did you do?
Well, it's a long story. I don't want to go down that. It's a long rabbit hole, but it didn't end well. Actually, we got the material transferred to California. It was supposed to go to Esalen, but then the warehouse they had it stored in was completely consumed by fire in
Oh,
2007.
no, no.
That was it for this incredible library. But this is not about my story. This is about, and of course, Paul, we share that friendship. I think I can call him Pablo too. I know him that well. And he's just the kind of guy who steps up when he sees a project like this and says, of course I'm going to support it.
Right.
So because he recognizes the value of this, preserving this knowledge, and and he has a good heart and a good head, and realizes how important it is to preserve this information. But the project you're talking about, I mean, he's provided sort of the seed funding to build this storage facility, begin to clean up some of the material and get rid of the molds and all that. But it seems like you have a longer term ambition that will cost a lot more than that. Not that it
Yeah,
is worth it.
and absolutely, and that initial donation that made from Paul, that made all this possible, was followed up with quite a lot more of important fundraising, with collaborations from people in the psychedelic space and also outside. Alma Institute held an amazing fundraiser, and many people have contributed, and we raised, and to date we've raised quite a lot. I mean, under $100,000, but quite a lot of money that has enabled us to clean back up, restore, maintain, to the point of the incompatibility of a library and rainforest. The storage facility has dehumidifiers, that are constantly running, so that
Right.
material is preserved.
This is
And
very important. Do you have
you're
any plans to digitize these collections, or is that
Yeah.
on the plate? Is that hoped for?
So we've been digitizing almost everything that is digitizable, and that's where a lot of the funds have been destined to date, which is in backing up the archive. So scanning negatives, positives, backing up VHS, Betamax tapes, and so in some cases even we have to develop film. We've also been digitizing a lot of the textile patterns that are held in this archive. There are many old traditional patterns that are held, patterns for embroidery of traditional dress. And so we've been doing that. But what has happened now, which has been super interesting, is that last year I had the delight of visiting the archive with brothers Merlin and Cosmo Sheldrake, who you also know quite well, and whose friendship we share. And so we visited with Merlin and Cosmo, and got to get quite a deep dive into the archive. And it was there that after that visit, that Merlin said, you know what, I have some friends who might be interested in helping. And he contacted the Fungi Foundation and Inti, so, the guardian of the archive, who and we do nothing apart in this project, with Paola Costello and Gabriela Gonzalez, who run Vuelta Sur, Foundation Vuelta Sur, and it was Vuelta Sur Foundation who, through Merlin's contact, decided to support our project with this fundraiser. So we cannot be more grateful to Vuelta Sur for supporting, and really, from that deep love and respect and care of Mexican culture, they have teamed up with us for this fundraiser to be able to raise. We aim to raise $250,000 to build the museum with permanent facilities for these exhibits. And that's our goal with Vuelta Sur. It's our goal with this fundraiser. And, Dennis, I'm really confident that we're going to be able to do it.
Oh, yes, I think you will. I think you'll be able to. And, with the magic of digitization, I mean, you can create a virtual museum long before you build a physical museum. And that, of course, will attract attention and support and educate people. So
Yeah.
this is absolutely wonderful project. And like so many things that you pursue, Juliana, you just identify good things and then you execute and you do it very well. So I'm really happy to see you working on this project. What else do you have going in your life? I know you're traveling. You must have. I think you've reserved the first seat in the business class on the Anchor or whatever. You must constantly be in the air.
Well, it's funny. There's a lot of very interesting stuff. But as you know, also I'm a mother of a young man, a 17-year-old. So I mean, I travel a lot, but I spend more time at home cooking and washing than I do up in the air. Although it doesn't seem that way, but I'm still, very much in the nurturing mode of motherhood.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Don't talk about that, but that's it's like kind of normal life goes on. But then on the other hand, all this professional stuff and pursuing your passion and your mission.
Right. And the Fungi Foundation has a lot going on at the moment. We have so we work to conserve the world's fungi. That's really our slogan, our mission, and we do that through different programs. One of the programs is conservation, where, as you mentioned in the beautiful introduction you gave of my work and the bio, from delimiting language to refer to fungi alongside plants and animals, to pushing it through international and national public policies in different parts of the world. And that work has been very successful. And what very exciting things coming ahead is working for the UN Convention on Biodiversity to also join the global movement and hopefully declare that fungi must be included alongside plants and animals in reporting on biodiversity. We also have an incredible education program where we've developed a free curriculum, mycological curriculum, initially designed with fantastic fungi and the team, but today very much housed in the Fungi Foundation. And it's a curriculum that has been translated to both Portuguese and Spanish. So it's available in 3 languages, English, Portuguese, and Spanish. It's completely free. You can find it through the Fungi Foundation website. And not only does it have material to teach children through, through the resources available, but it also has webinars to teach teachers how to teach about fungi. So, all stages of schooling, so from K5 to senior year.
Yeah, well, that's very necessary. Even teachers in biology often, I mean, they of course know about fungi, but very few are really educated about it. It's kind of the neglected phylum or kingdom, actually. And are, as we know, since we're enthusiasts about fungi, it's by far one of the most interesting kingdoms because fungi are, just amazing in themselves and more similar to animals than they are to plants. I mean, people even now they think of fungi as plants, and it used to be in mycology was a subset of botany departments, but no longer.
Cryptogram, cryptogamic. Do you remember?
We recognize that mycology and fungi are their own thing, and very important in the biosphere. And
enabling plant life on Earth, and that's actually, I'd say, one of the small attributes is no plant can live out of water without them very much. I mean, very few plants. So it's, that's, I mean, they're that part of education and conservation is complemented at the foundation with a program called the Elders Program, where we have collated all the ancestral relationships known between humanity and fungi. And it's been a titanic task of many years looking at peer-reviewed publications, general publications, oral history, to see how humanity and fungi, outside of edibility alone, have culturally co-evolved and how they have related. And, we got this big database and map together and very quickly realized that we had to just very much face the ethical questions surrounding being complicit to sharing information that had been obtained without informed consent. And so at the foundation, we took on the task of building the Ethnomycological Ethical Guidelines. And it's the first set of guidelines, guiding principles, elaborated specifically for fungi. And they're also available at ffungi.org, at the Fungi Foundation's page. And there one can...
How do you spell that? Is it FFUNGI?
Yes, .org.
So double F. So it's a double F, not
Yes.
one F, but two Fs.
Yeah.
So
a lot of work in that interface of how humanity and fungi have culturally co-evolved together. And all of this is very much complemented with expeditions, which is, we travel to places where nobody's ever been before to look for fungi. And that's where a lot of the spiritual nurturing comes from to be able to continue. Yeah.
Yes. Well, this is important because fungi, at least mushrooms, of all the psychedelics, mushrooms probably have the oldest relationship to humanity. And, my brother was a big originator of the Stone Age theory, and I've sort of elaborated on it.
Yeah.
But I and people can see, my presentations on this, but I think it's not unreasonable. You can make a plausible case that mushrooms have had this symbiotic alliance with human beings before they were anything we would call human, that we've basically co-evolved. And because what we know now about what they do, what psychedelics, what psilocybin specifically does to brain architecture and increasing connectivity and all this. Just today, I was reading an article in New Scientist that was talking about why have we evolved big brains? What's the use of big brains?
Sure.
And it's been the assumption that bigger brains mean more intelligence and so on, but not necessarily. There are things now discovered like Homo floresiensis and the Naledi and these folks. They were complex, they were intelligent, they made tools, they had probably religion and
the
burial because they were small people,
Yeah.
And so this article was talking about it's not the size of the brain, it's the complexity of the brain. It's the number of folds and the neural complexity. And the one sort of, and they were saying, well, because these were small people, they had small skulls, but their brains were complex because they were stuffed in such a small place. And I'm thinking, you guys are not seeing the elephant in the room here. Here is something, or the mushroom in the room. Here is
a mushroom in the room
that is known to stimulate neural complexity and connectivity. And we've evolved with this thing. And
we have.
Genetically, over millions of years, that's got to affect, that has to have played a role, I believe, and I think you can make a pretty good case for it without sounding like a complete wingnut,
Well, one of the very exciting projects that I'm collaborating on. So some people, don't know very much about it, but there's a scientific, more academic scientific side to my work, which includes species discovery and others. But in this particular case, I'm really, really excited about a project that I collaborate on, led by Dr. Bryn Dentinger, Bryn,
I know he was at ESBD 55. Yeah,
you
got it.
there. And so with Bryn, I've been collaborating with him and his team where we've been looking at full genome sequencing of psilocybe, the
Okay.
genus psilocybe, to understand, what's happening, where the synonymities are within the genus, etc. But we've also been looking at the biogeographical history of the genus. And what we know is that to date, with the information we have, the genus originates in what today is Ethiopia. So we know that the origin of Homo sapiens and the origin of the genus psilocybe is in the same geographical
So
area.
his work shows that the genus psilocybe originated in Ethiopia, not just Cubentus, but the whole genus.
Right. So we
God,
can.
Giuliana, that pretty much nails it down, doesn't it?
Well, there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot still to do. But what we can, and we are actually planning some expeditions to the continent of Africa to follow this up. But I mean, this is not set in stone. Is in the fact that there are still a lot of species to get full genome sequencing of. But to date, we know is that it's pretty much originating in Africa. So
through these molecular techniques, you can basically find the common ancestor of the genus, and you can trace it. My God, that pretty well nails it down, if you ask me. Of course, you didn't ask me; nobody asked me. But I think that's a piece of the puzzle. It shows that this genus originated in North Africa at the same time that hominids originated in more or less the same area, the Northern Sahara, what's now the Northern Sahara. So I think that's really
before right? So before Homo sapiens. I'll send over so we can put some of the publications up in the text box in the page. But there's a lot of support to that and to the hypothesis or the theory of the Stone Age.
And of course, we know from fossil evidence that there were cattle in this area. They've got fossil remains of cattle, the precursors of modern Cebu cattle, which evolved in this area around the same time these hominids were there. Well, you've got the hominids, you've got the cattle, you've got cow shit. You had to have the mushrooms.
Exactly. Yeah. And so the lead author on these papers is Alex Bradshaw, and I invite everybody to take a look. There are two papers. I'll put them now in the text box. I'm just putting this one in, and one from 2022, and the other one from just this year. One on the DNA authentication and chemical analysis of psilocybe mushrooms reveal inconsistencies, etc., in Fungaria, and that's tending towards the possibility of being able to move specimens without the DEA approval. We showed, the team showed that psilocybin degrades, and that in old specimens is no longer present, so that we wouldn't need those permits. And then another more recent paper from this year, which is called Phylogenomics of the Psychoactive Mushroom Genus Psilocybe and Evolution of the Psilocybin Biosynthetic Gene Cluster. So I'll be putting both of these into the chat box.
Okay, yes, please do, because we can link to those from the podcast website. I think this would be very interesting to people.
Yeah.
It's amazing considering, I mean, all the markers are there, all the everything points to this, and considering we're trying to sort out, coevolutionary events that took place maybe as far back as 2 million years ago. I mean, that is pretty amazing, and that I think you can make a strong case that the or psychedelic, if there is such a thing, had to be a mushroom, not a plant. I mean, for example, ayahuasca is a very sophisticated plant preparation. It can't be older than more than a couple of thousand years. There's no definite idea. Some people have said maybe 1,000 BC. Well, that was yesterday compared
That
to
was yesterday.
relation to the mushrooms,
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. Well, so what else is going on, and what could be more exciting than that?
So exciting, isn't it? One of the really exciting things that are happening around, just around these ancestral relationships and what's happening in a global movement is what the Fungi Foundation and our team are doing around rights of nature. As you may know, there is a global movement that is, and also leading countries that are working really hard to give legal beinghood or personhood, beinghood, to non-human species.
Right.
And, Ecuador and Bolivia, for example, have rights of nature in their constitutions. Chile, unfortunately, rejected the proposal of a constitution that included rights of nature. But there are places, there are rivers in India, there are turtles in Panama, and many other examples of places where non-human beings have legal beinghood and have rights. And at the Fungi Foundation, we're working with a group called MOS, the More Than Human Rights Movement, led by NYU, New York University. And we're working to explore different areas of the more than human rights legal world, but very specifically in our case, looking at how giving rights to a mushroom species, for example, to a fungus, can accelerate habitat protection or can accelerate protection of ecosystems.
Yes.
As you know, most fungi are specific to their hosts or to their symbionts.
Right.
And what that ensures is that in that very deep personal and essential relationship between a fungus and its symbiont, they are inseparable. So when you protect a fungus, you are essentially protecting its symbiont. And in the case of fungi that form symbiosis with species that are living and that are restricted to a certain area, you can achieve the protection of a habitat through the protection of the fungus. And that's, for me, another one of those very, very exciting areas of work where the Fungi Foundation is working to make progress on an international level. So we're looking at a case in Ecuador. We're working with lawyers and ex-judges in Ecuador to see if we can put forward a case of protecting a particular locality through giving rights and legal beinghood to a mushroom.
What about other organisms in that ecosystem? Don't they have rights too?
They do have rights. Of course they have rights, but they may not be restricted. So, for example, or they may not be inseparable from the habitat. So why are fungi so important in this scenario? First is because there are many species that are inseparable from the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
With plants, you can take them to a botanic garden, for example, in many cases. With animals, you can take them to a zoo in many cases.
Right.
But with fungi, you cannot separate them from their ecosystems.
Right. So if you're going to protect the fungi, they cannot be taken out of their habitat. You have to protect the habitat. But this whole thing about, it's very interesting, this sort of discovering of personhood, beinghood in non-human organisms. It's kind of has the air of inevitability about it, and long overdue, by several million years, or actually, I think there was probably a certain time in history when this was in indigenous people. This was always understood. These are intelligences. These are plant teachers. These are fungal teachers. Whatever they are, they have their own intelligence. But then,
they're in spirit
into the reductionist post-Renaissance, so-called scientific era. This was lost sight of. But it raises many, if fungal or non-human, if plant and fungal intelligence and rights begin to be recognized, that raises some very interesting questions about our relationship. So if we domesticate a plant, are we enslaving it? I mean, can you say, is that slave or is it symbiosis? Is it like, well, the plant and the human partner got together, but the plant,
Yeah.
they
So when
asked if they wanted to be part of this symbiosis, but I guess the fact that they participate and thrive under those circumstances, I mean, it's just a very interesting idea. What if it doesn't want to be domesticated? like what about, I mean, Michael Pollan often has talked a lot about corn, the relationship, coevolutionary with relationship between corn and the human species, and has made the point that corn is, the perfect crop for international monoculture, industrial agriculture. It effectively is domesticated humans
yes,
just
yes.
spread across the planet,
I mean, in Merlin Sheldrake's fabulous book Entangled Life, he makes the case that psilocybe cubensis has domesticated us and has thrived and
I
has
will
spread
not disagree
all over
with
the
that. That's
world.
exactly what it's done. Yeah.
It's exactly right. So these are really, really great questions, and there are many, many people addressing these questions and thinking about them. So I invite everybody to look at mothrights.org, so morethanhumanrights.org, and you'll find some things written and published there. And more than that, there is next year, the fantastic British author Robert Macfarlane, who many of you might know from reading Underland or The Old Ways, some of his great books. He has written a book called Is a River Alive? And it's going to be published next year.
What is it called?
Is a River Alive?
Okay.
It's about rights of nature. And it talks about that history, what you were saying, the history of our detachment from the obvious notion that non-human beings have rights. And so it talks exactly about what happened in, with the scientific era, onset with, the Catholic Church, etc., and how rights of nature have changed, how non-human beings lost rights in a way, very recently, and how important it is to get back on track. But they're very interesting questions. And in the definition of why you would give rights, it's the right to thrive. So if you're reproducing and ensuring that a species thrives, it's different to whether you're reproducing and maybe not ensuring that a species thrives. And so there are many many philosophical and many practical legal issues to tackle around rights of nature.
Absolutely. This is this is really sort of expanding the whole perspective beyond the human species. In my own rants and raves, I've talked about the right to symbiosis. We should start to assert the right to symbiosis. So it goes beyond, it transcends simply human right. It's a right of any organism to form a symbiotic relationship with any other organism. So it's not confined to humans. And the domestication of a plant, or the utilization of a plant for nutrition, or whatever it may be used for ritual purposes or whatever, any relationship between plants and fungi and humans that's mutually beneficial is a kind of symbiosis. And we should, in the legal sphere, we should assert this. This is why the idea that we have the authority to declare that we're going to eradicate coca from the earth, or we're going to eradicate opium from the earth. I mean, the human arrogance that this bespeaks is just gobsmacking, frankly. Who gave the authority to declare that coca can't exist or poppies can't exist? I mean, this is, this.
Yeah, and the cannabis movement has done an incredible job at trying to stop that and effectively stopping it in so many places around the world. I think, just as a gate, gate opener to everything else that we need to do. But what we're seeing is that, having these rights and rights of nature are very, very, in the places where in South America, and South America leads not only fungal conservation from Chile, we're very proud of that, but South American countries lead the movement of rights of nature. Ecuador, Bolivia, others, and it's very, very tight-knit and held within indigenous cosmovisions. And what we're seeing there is that there is this, this move to maintain those ancestral relationships with non-human beings under the wing of indigenous people, once again preserving not only the habitats but these symbiosis and commensalism with the plants and with the fungi and with the animals. So hopefully the rights of nature movement that has in many cases specific articles tied to it, the rights of indigenous peoples to keep maintaining their cultural heritage and traditions and medicines and food. And maybe through that symbiosis of rights of nature with indigenous cosmovisions, we'll be able to hopefully get rights for medicinal plants and fungi and animals that help us heal the spirit.
Right. Yeah, well, it's indigenous people have always been the stewards of the genetics, as well as the knowledge associated with these medicinal plants, medicinal fungi, and so on. So this is a very interesting thing that this is an area now for public discourse. The idea of non-human rights. I have to wonder what this is going to look like in a legal sense in 100 years from now. Of course, we probably won't be around in 100 years the way things are going, but we can dream, we can speculate. But it could be a very different picture because, the sickness that has infected our species, our civilization, has basically to do with this estrangement from nature. Yeah. And that springs out of the perspective that we own nature. It's dead. It's not really alive.
It's separate. And
it's just something for us to exploit.
Yeah.
And that's what's killing the planet. And ultimately, that's what's going to kill us is to, so we have to, the fact that this discussion is taking place at this very fundamental level.
Yeah.
Might mean that eventually a legal framework would emerge for protecting non-human rights, and you can't create that framework without recognizing that non-humans do have rights. And
absolutely,
I've been reading several science fiction books. That's how I learned a lot. But a couple of science fiction books have come out there. One is called The Mountain Under the Sea, which I highly recommend. Do you know it?
I don't. I'm going to write it down.
It's a fiction book, but it's centered around a colony of octopuses that was discovered in some tropical island in the South Seas, and this particular colony turns out to actually have language and culture and to be, more sophisticated than anyone imagined. And it's an amazing book because it tells a ripping good story. It's by Ray Naylor, and it's The Mountain Under the Sea. But
Mountain Under the Sea.
The story is fantastic, but then each chapter also opens with a long screed about what is consciousness, what is intelligence, and the deep philosophical discussion.
Damn.
I just love this book.
Read it.
It shows, and I've come to respect octopuses a lot more. Not that I didn't respect them before, but I always thought, fried calamari was a good thing. I can't eat octopi. Be like or something. I can't eat a species that's that I am.
You
And they
know,
don't have to be very smart to be smarter than I am. So a lot of stuff is off the menu.
Oh no, no visiting Peru. But this is, I mean, this whole thing about rights of nature and rights of, rights to maintain relationships and symbiosis between non-humans and other non-humans and non-humans and humans takes us back to the importance of this archive. I want to just, before our time is up, just come back and invite people to support this project, because what we're doing with this archive is effectively protect ancestral knowledge of old relationships between humans and non-humans, not only psilocybe, not psilocybe species, but also a lot of plant species and a lot of the rituals. There are, in this archive, there are detailed videos and accounts of the preparation, the mortuary preparation of humans when they leave this plane and go to the infra world in Mazatec Cosmovision. There are detailed accounts of and footage of how maize is used in divination, how and several very important relationships between non-humans and humans. So for me, although it seems a detached project, they're very much attached, and everything we do in this relationship with rights of nature, with conservation of fungi in policy, and then with conservation of this archive that holds this knowledge of information between humans and non-humans. So, if anybody can support, please do. The Fungi Foundation manages this project together with the family, with Inti Garcia Flores and his family, in a very, very loving relationship and long relationship. And so through the Fungi Foundation, you can donate, and you can also participate in this incredible fundraiser that Vuelta Sur is putting together with the Fungi Foundation and Paul Stamets and the Historia y Memorias Mazatecas on September 1st in Vancouver. So I just wanted to bring it back to that.
So, Giuliana, I want to thank you for taking time to talk to us. We're just about at the top of the hour here, so we'll put everything on the podcast website. And if you think of anything else we need to put up there, why, just let me know, and we'll try to drop this podcast close to the date of the fundraiser so that it'll be in the top of people's minds. So.
Well, thank you so much, Dennis. I mean, it means the world to us to have, this opportunity to share. And it means the world to me always to be able to have a good chat with you. It's good that over the last few years, it's been at least once a year that we get to have a good chat.
Yes. Yes, you keep showing up in places. You're much more peripatetic than I am. But it's great to see you again, and even virtually. And good luck with all your travels. And we'll be in touch. We'll have another podcast one of these days soon.
We will. And a big hug, and thank you very much.
Big hug to you, and much gratitude. Much gratitude.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Hello, this is Dennis McKenna, and I would like to introduce you to the McKenna Academy of Natural Philosophy, and also our YouTube channel under the same name, where we're presenting the Brain Forest Cafe podcasts. We hope that you will listen to some of those, watch them, and subscribe. If you like the ideas we're presenting, the Academy is interested in presenting stimulating educational content. Our vision is a world in which all sentient beings live together in symbiotic harmony. And we do try to achieve this through education, engagement with indigenous cultures, and ethnobiological explorations. So we appreciate your donations and support. We urge you to subscribe to the Brain Forest Cafe and share it and the content with your friends. And we're very happy for your support. We couldn't do it without you. So thank you very much.